right, ladies and gentlemen, we're in a real treat here for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio tonight because our guest is one of the few college basketball players I actually had the pleasure to see live, and I still remember it when it was in 2020, February 2020, before COVID. I'm watching this young team, the York Cardinals, and I'm watching this guard. He's got a unique hairstyle. He moves the ball well. He can score, and he had a lot of motto against guys like Doug Levy, Jason Brower, Kyle LaGuardia, and he held his own, and they did a pretty good job, and he wound up doing a really good job overall in his career at York because he scored over 1,100 points. He is fifth all-time in school history in points. He is near the top of the list in most other categories, which is assists, steals. He was the 2019 CUNYAC Rookie of the Year. He was all-conference, not once, but twice second team. And last season in 2020 and this year, he was the CUNYAC Sportsman of the Year for the men's basketball programs here in CUNY. And also, last season, the York Cardinals had their best season in 7 years, 10 wins in the conference. Overall winning season, win a game in the CUNYAC. This year, they were 500 in conference, and we're going to talk about all that plus a heck of a lot more. He needs no further introduction, but we're going to give it to him anyway. So, without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one Rebel Sports Show, star guard for your Cardinals men's basketball team, Devine. Chisholm. My friend, welcome aboard.
What's up, man? How you doing? Yeah, that introduction is amazing.
You know, I told you that would be good because I told you one of the things. It's a good one. I knew you'd get that. I knew you'd enjoy it.
Top notch for real. How you doing, man?
I'm good, but actually, you know what? Now I have to think about it because I have watched you play. I've watched all your streams on YouTube, and I don't think you got that at home games too much there at the Guy R. Brewer Center there too much. I don't think you got those too much at home. No.
My first couple of through the introductions, yeah. Our Mike man, Tony Brothers. He
yes, I've heard him. Sure.
I think like last year it was like his last season, and then he got a gig at the Brooklyn Nets. And then, like, my senior year this year, he would come to a few games. So he's been there through a lot of my time. So.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, certainly, obviously, we'll get to that later on, and obviously, it is a tremendous honor to have you. And we'll definitely talk a lot about your journey in a second. But obviously, there was some news on the York Cardinals men's basketball social media pages that one of your teammates actually won a really, really important achievement here, and that is Terrell Fullerton. And Terrell was obviously a spectacular player this season. He was Met All Writers second team. That's a pretty big deal here. And for those that are listening and watching first, I mean, talk about that for the program, how big that was, and just what Terrell was like this year and why you guys had some success returning to the playoffs here in the CUNYAC.
First off, congratulations to Terrell. Amazing player, amazing talent, even better teammate, honestly. One of the most, if not most, talented, skilled player I've ever got the honor to share the court with. It's huge. That's a great accomplishment. A lot of players, especially throughout 4 years of college, don't get to have that kind of honoree. And for him to be able to bring it back to York is definitely big for the program. It just continues to trend us into the right direction of bringing York to just a higher standard, letting people that we kind of continue to put ourselves on the map for CUNY. Hopefully he's able to do it again and exceed expectations next year when he returns back. So
no question about that. Yep. Absolutely. And congratulations to him. And I think what you said kind of hit the nail on the head about the program is I know we've obviously in the early years you went through some trials and tribulations here, but I kind of feel like with Terrell and some other players that you've played with that were on the right track, and I kind of think he's going to lead the program, and obviously all Division III here to win this achievement. It's certainly a big thing for the program, and obviously, as we said here on the social media, is extremely proud and go Cardinals. But, I mean, Talk about then what you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think the program is heading in the right direction finally. I know we went through some trials and tribulations, as I pointed out. You were here those first couple years, but talk about how it felt these last 2 years to be in the playoffs and kind of at least taste a little bit of success here.
My last 2 years, 2 years has definitely been complete 360. My last 2 years has actually been the most fun I've had playing basketball. I have like a free flowing system just to be able to play basketball and stuff. But the kind of teammates that I've had over these past 2 years, just being able to hold each other accountable, being able to compete, play hard every time we step on the court in practice and get each other back. It's fun playing basketball that way. So honestly, having teammates like Terrell Fullerton, having teammates like Wale Killer or Amambe Karesi or Karan Dublin, like having those guys throughout my journey was definitely fun because not only were they talented, but looking to the right of me, knowing that they're gonna put in as work as I am is gonna be fun. So it was definitely fun. Competitive in the CUNY, making the playoffs, being easy going, just happy. It was a complete 360, and it was definitely fun. We'll definitely cherish and remember these last 2 years, definitely.
You guys were fun to watch. There was no question. We would speak about you guys on the show. Obviously, we'll get to that with the Brute Force later and some of the old SJLI guys. But yeah, you guys were fun to watch. I always try to make sure my Friday nights when you guys were on Saturdays, I would always make sure at least I can kind of check you guys out because you guys were really fun to watch. You would put the ball in the basket, and I kind of enjoyed it. It was you and Hunter. I mean, you and Hunter would basically, it was like a track meet in a lot of those games. I think Hunter was a little bit more difficult because Hunter, it was almost like their coach presses like when the game is over. It's like, what are you doing? The game's over, and you guys weren't as bad as that. But do you compare a lot like the first 2 years to these last 2 years where, okay, those first 2 years, it was tough. You guys were kind of at the bottom of the conference, but these last 2 years, you were definitely in the top upper echelon of the conference. Obviously, last year we had more, but even this year, we were 500 in conference, had the home playoff game. You were definitely, the record, I think, would indicate that you guys should have had a better fate because obviously watching you guys were neck and neck with teams like Lehman, Baruch, certainly CCNY. Those were the teams that were ahead of you this year in the conference. But I mean, do you kind of compare, let's say, going on the team aspect for a few minutes before we get to the individual career, that from a team aspect, do you maybe appreciate these last 2 years more and kind of reflect a little bit on where we were and then to kind of where we are now?
I definitely do, off the simple fact of my first 2 years coming in, especially as a freshman, was really just that learning experience, like adjusting to the game from high school to college is way different. Just the pace, the physicality of it was also way different. And then not coming into it, not really knowing what to expect, like as far as just playing the kind of play style. But then the last, and then the last 2 years when you play, it's like people kind of had us on their radar. Like, yeah, so like going into games, you would like people had us on their radar, like, yo, like York, like these guys, like don't let the record fool you. These guys are coming to play. Like we're gonna, like if you let us get off on you, we're gonna punch you in the mouth and we're gonna run on you all night. It's gonna be a long night for you if you let us.
You did do that. I have to say, That's a really accurate description because we would talk about you guys on the shows quite a bit here. We've had Coach Gist on, I think at least on 3 or 4 different occasions, and we would speak a lot about the program, but I even kind of thought that the seeds were there even in 2020, watching you play, watching how you played with the ball, watching how kind of the leader you were on the court. I know you guys didn't have the weapons that you had later on, obviously with Terrell and Micah Gooseby and Matthew Tripetta, and certainly Killer you mentioned. And I mean, you certainly were building those seeds, but I kind of felt like even then the program was going in that direction. And almost in a way, did that motivate you knowing, you know what? Okay, the first 2 years, you guys were kind of at the bottom of the conference with the teams, let's say like Medgar, CCNY, though CCNY, like you guys certainly played a hell of a lot better this year. But now everybody's kind of got you and said, you know what? Yeah, York should be right up there with Baruch. York should be right up there with Lehman these last couple years. York should be right up there with CCNY. Did that motivate you maybe in your teammates knowing that you guys had a little bit more of a target on your backs these 2 years versus the first two?
Yeah, absolutely. It motivated us. It motivated us off the simple fact of that we believed in each other. We knew that no matter what the record indicated, that the skill set in the gym always was there, and that on any given night we could compete with anybody. We never went into a game just thinking that, oh, because their record was higher, that they were just gonna come and just do whatever they wanted as far as on the basketball standpoint. Like, and we knew that against a talented and very well coached Baruch team, or against a very talented Lehman team, that they're gonna have to play their best basketball as well as we're gonna have to play our best basketball at any chance to win. So that's kind of what motivated us, just on the fact that no matter what the records say, that talent wise, we knew what we were capable of, and that's just what pushed us throughout the just next game, like just work on the moment now, and whatever happened. I feel like
Absolutely no question about that. And sorry, we got cut off there for a second on the stream, but I also think that one of the foundations of the program that was kind of laid upon as to where you guys got to where you are at least these last 2 years versus the first two that you play, let's leave aside the COVID year, was your former coach, Nolan Adams. And Nolan
Mhm.
Adams obviously was so important to the program. I think he was more important than the wins and losses would kind of tell a story to, because he brought in a lot of these players. Obviously, Coach Gist played a huge role in that as well. But I mean, I was curious for those that are listening and watching that are certainly boosters of the program, and obviously to your teammates, and how big was Coach Adams and kind of laying the seeds to where you guys have ended up?
Coach Adams was tremendous. He was the head of it all. Shout out to him. He recruited me to go there in 2018 when I came out of high school, and he kind of just laid the foundation of just like always. First of all, his first message always was basketball is cool, but you guys are here to graduate. Like, don't get that twisted. Like, you guys are here to graduate. You guys are here to become better men, better people on and off the court, more so off the court, because that's just how life is. Like, he was preparing us for life. So I'll always credit him for that. But just the way he recruited and the guys that he recruited, he's seen us to fit in aspects on the court that built a certain camaraderie between us. Like, and I will always commend him for that, because if it wasn't for his recruitment, guys that I call my teammates turned to brothers. So I credit him a lot for that. Amazing coach, amazing person. Feel me? And he's just amazing. I couldn't credit him enough.
Well, he was definitely a very jovial guy on the court, and I always loved watching kind of his animations when I would watch him on those different shows. I know you probably had a lot of the worst end on practice, but just watching your games, he was an interesting guy on the sidelines. You know, there's some coaches you watch in the CUNY, and they're like very stoic. And then there was like Coach Adams, certainly Coach Highland. Obviously, we know Coach Highland very well here, and some other coaches that they certainly had that kind of animated kind of personality, to say the least. And I always thought Coach Adams in the CUNYAC was always at the top of the list.
Yeah, definitely. I realized after my first year there, when he was coaching us, like, he was due for 2 technical fouls a season. That was that was given. Like, he was due for 2 technical fouls. If he felt the call wasn't going the fair way, or he just felt like we weren't getting the same respect, he's going all out. And he was the same way in practice. He was very animated in practice from the jump. And it's because he always had high expectations of us. And he thought so highly of us when a lot of people around the conference didn't think so highly of us. So it would just motivate him. So that's just and that's just always how he's been. And he's going to continue.
Yeah, he was always an interesting guy. And we actually, and I've said this before on the air with the Gist brothers when they've come on in separate spots, we actually have in a way like an actual acquaintance or actually somebody very close in Coach Adams' life that actually kind of helped and kind of mold him. So I always joke every time I see that person, oh, how's Nolan Adams doing? Hey, you got a Nolan Adams story for me. So I kind of had to bring him up at the top. But no, I always thought about the CUNYAC, and you have so many interesting coaches there with different personalities. Coach Highland, obviously Coach Alessi, and certainly Coach Baptiste and Coach Pellin. I mean, there's always Coach Boateng now. I mean, you think about that conference and all those different coaches there, but Coach definitely held his own and certainly transitioning it into Coach Gist. And in a lot of ways, and tell me your thoughts. I know we spoke about you here in the past, having Coach Gist on a couple different times, and in a lot of ways, I mean, you guys obviously maybe played the same position, but also in a lot of ways you were different players. So I mean, talk about then Coach Gist for us, because I know Coach is going to come on back and he's going to certainly hear these comments. So talk about the influence that Coach Gist had on you, certainly maybe on and even off the court.
First of all, shout out Coach Gist. Amazing coach, amazing dude. He swears he's the flyest coach in the whole community.
Why have I heard that from other teams, other schools? I feel like I've heard that before.
He always just thinks he's this so swagged out dude, so cool, so that's just how he think he is. But nah, he's a great dude. As far as play styles, he was a dog. Like he was a dog.
Oh, I know. Listen, we covered him. I mean, I watched him play, and the way he was.
Yeah, he was. Me personally, as a player, I felt like I was way more laid back as a floor journal. He was just a straight killer, and then he would tell me that at times, like, dude, you're too nice. Like he would put me to the side like that. That was the difference between us. But then, he always trusted me enough to let me be me, to play through my mistakes, to trust me with the offense, to allow me to be aggressive at times, and he knew that I would always give my 100% of whatever I had on the floor. And I think that's why we just gravitated towards one another. Like, because he knew that I was going to give him everything that I had, and I trusted him to always put me in the right positions to succeed as a player. Even when he was an assistant coach before he got
and you know what, he was very important, because even when we spoke to him then, when he was the assistant coach, and obviously congratulations to Coach Gist on the interim tag being removed, right. Certainly well deserved. I always felt that in a lot of ways that he would want to have a team based on his identity, and I know that the relationship that he had with Coach Adams, so I'm in a way not surprised that you answered the question that way. And I do have actually a question from somebody that's actually watching us here. And I actually want to get to that person. I want to actually let them have the opportunity to say hello to you. So Luke says, hi there. Just want to say I love your streams. Thank you so much for your support. Just want to ask a question to Devine. As a basketball fan from England, because just so you know, Devine, we have a big following in England. I have people from all over the world.
England is surprising.
Yes, it's but not as impressive as you. But here's the question: do you ever think about coming overseas to play? Somebody must be watching out there, and what do you think to that?
I've given it thought, definitely. It's always been my dream to make basketball my job. As I was younger, it's been my dream to make basketball just a job as playing. Now that I've grown older, I feel like I've learned enough of the game where I could possibly pass it on. So either whether it's coaching or just playing the basketball, I just want to make basketball my job. But definitely, I would love to play overseas. I feel like that's a great experience. I've made a ton of connections with professional basketball players now who play overseas in different countries. And a lot of the stories I hear from them is just like, just to be able to experience that would be amazing. So definitely, if the opportunity ever came knocking on my door to play overseas, I definitely would take the chance. I would jump at it 100%, and I wouldn't look back, honestly. So to answer that question, yes, definitely, I would definitely play overseas basketball.
And I think you can do it before I get to another comment here, because the reason I think you can do it, and I know you can do it, leave aside the fact that I've watched you play, you certainly know a lot with the ball, and you've done a lot of great things here, but there are players that you've played against in the CUNYAC that have played professionally and are still playing professionally currently. Definitely. Jason Brown, who I think about, is in Puerto Rico. Doug Levy, by the way, somebody I saw you square off with quite a bit those first 2 years, has actually played in Israel. Now he's at Northwestern, and actually a guy at SJLI Long Island who you played against, Jonah Caldwell, played professionally. So I think if those guys can do it, I mean, why not you here? And I do have a couple of comments here because people were excited to hear from you. And I'm glad of that. First, I want to get to your coach. And by the way, I want to give Coach Gist a shout out because obviously Coach allowed us to speak with you. But I've always been a big fan of Coach because we've had him on several times. And Coach really gets it. Coach is really one of these guys. He's one of my favorite coaches. And I'm not just saying it because he allowed you to come on, because we've actually had him on many times. We've actually watched you guys in the flesh. And he says, great player, an even better person. And I want to go back to something that you said, and I'm sure Coach will appreciate this, about Coach Adams and talking about you're here to graduate. Now, I know that obviously on the court, you were dominant. We'll get to all that in a second, but it took you a while to kind of adjust to being a student athlete. And you wound up overcoming all those obstacles. I know the first year was a little tough with the GPA and such. And talk about how you were able to kind of overcome that, especially that first year in terms of your grades, to be the kind of person that we see now that's going to do way bigger and better things than being here with us.
First off, shout out Coach Giss again. But just making the transition of understanding that I can't do one without the other. Like, I understood that when I was recruited to come to York, that I was recruited to play basketball, but school had to be just as important. But my first year, I kind of didn't take it as serious, if I'm being quite honest. Like, I just thought it was gonna be all basketball. Like any kid thinks. But like, I once had a conversation with my former teammate Ty Jenkins. Shout out to him, and he told me, like,
I remember him very well.
He told me, like, if you don't buckle up, this is going to be taken away from you very quickly. Like, you have to settle down. You have to buckle up. And I just started treating my schoolwork like I treated basketball. Just put the extra work in, making a sacrifice to just rise my GPA and just being a better student. And then I went from being the student to the teacher, basically pushing my freshmen and sophomore teammates in a better direction of, this is going to be taken away. Take school serious. You have to go to study hall. You have to turn in assignments. You have to put in the extra work, just like you would on the court if you want to be a successful student athlete. That's why the term is student athlete. Can't do one without the other. So,
and I'm glad that I asked this question. I want everybody, while we're here, to follow the York Cardinals men's basketball team on Instagram at @YorkCardinals_M basketball to find out why we love the Cardinals and all the things that the program is doing. And of course, Devine Chisholm, please follow him on Instagram at IamVine2. Please follow him and support him. And I've always had this, and I had a soliloquy, and I'll get to my next comment that'll kind of lead into this, but I've always felt at the D3 level, it is so hard, and you guys get so little recognition in being student athletes. Everybody thinks, oh, you're in the NCAA, you get this, you get that. No, you guys don't do that. First of all, you guys, A, are on a commuter school. B, you're going to have to go out and still do your studies. C, you're going to have to deal with all the practicing, all the games. And D, you might even have to get a job. Because I know when I went to school, I had clown college-like grades. So imagine what you have to go through to have a certain amount. That's why I'm here, you're there. But I mean, I think it's so important to note the sacrifice that you and your teammates, Coach Gist and the person I'll get to next, that you sort of played against but didn't play against. But with the roles that you guys have to go through to be student athletes at this level, I have all the respect in the world for what you guys do, because it is not easy. And I don't think people realize the sacrifice you made, Devine, the rest of your teammates, and even the coaching staff made to be where you guys are.
I on the head. A lot of people from the outside looking in, they hear NCAA school, college basketball player, and they automatically think you're playing at Duke under Coach K at the time. Like, they just think everything is.
I used last month on the show.
You hear it, and then people just think like, oh my God, no, a Division III athlete. First of all, Division III athlete, you're not playing under scholarship.
No,
you're not, you don't get an athletic scholarship. A lot of people are paying out of pocket to go to school degree. And then to play basketball on top of that, like, it's just you make these sacrifices, because when you play a sport on top of that, you're still dedicated to be the best you can be at that sport. You still have to make film. You still gotta go in morning workouts, after school workouts, after practice shooter. Have to do all these things on top of maybe you have to get a job, maybe you have to work 2 jobs just to get tuition. Maybe you don't get financial aid, don't get that assistance from the school that help you pay for tuition, and then paying for it out of pocket is just like it's not what you think of. I've had so many people who just be like, yo, yo, like you're so lucky. Like you're so lucky, da da da. You like because from the outside looking in, they see the accolades, the basketball, just that and the third. So it's just like, oh, you're so lucky. But in my head, it's just like you don't understand. Like you don't know how much work I put in
No,
on
and
top of
listen, you talked about the
like.
practices. I know with the St. Joe's guys, they would have
Mhm.
sometimes 7 o'clock practices. They would have to go and get shots before class. That could be 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, then everybody gets 4 p.m. practice. I mean, the John Jay guys from afar were lucky. They got their practice in the afternoon, but some
Right.
teams didn't have that. So, I mean, you basically literally have like a marathon of a day in that 4 or 5 months that you're playing. And I just feel like what you guys do does not get the recognition, and I thought it was important to at least to touch upon that.
Yeah, it can be difficult. It could be difficult, and the reason it could be difficult at times, you can just like you could fall you could fall victim of just like, man, like why am I doing this? Like I'm putting just so much onto me, like so much burden on my body. But if you love what you're doing, if you're willing to make the sacrifice, if you know what you're going into it, you'll be locked in to do it. And I felt like that's what it was for me. It's just like I knew what I was coming to. Like I knew that York wasn't a scholarship school. I knew that I would have to make these sacrifices. I knew that I would have to get a job, and I knew that it would be all worth it in the end. And coming to the closing stages of my 4 years, 5 years at school is definitely worth it. And I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a single thing about it. So
And we wouldn't change the fact that we got a chance to watch you play. We're very, very happy about that. I do have a
thank
couple of comments. And Luke says, so much respect to you, Devine. Keep working. I believe you will make basketball your job. I have no doubt that that is
thank you.
certainly going to be the case because Devine is a special guy. But speaking of guys, I guess you might say that they're special. He's obviously my co-host when we do a lot of these shows, and you sort of played against him, but he actually didn't play in those 2 years you played against St. Joe's. We're talking about the brute force Brad Weiss, of course, of the former Golden Eagles, 27th all time in school history and rebounds. Now, thankfully, you're a little higher in some of your school's categories, but the brute force says, "What's going on, Devine? Welcome to the show, Sportswire Radio." Now, I'm not going to talk about some of those matchups you had with St. Joe's, but I will certainly not talk about the wins and losses aspect. But I will say, I mean, any memories of maybe playing some of those guys that you might have liked on the teams, or any memory at all of the brute force Brad Weiss? Because I'm certainly, if you have anything funny to say, anything that you might want of note that he's watching and listening to this, we'd love to hear it.
Shout out to him. I know one thing about always going and playing at St. Joe's. We always had them at the beginning of our schedule. So
Yes,
I know
you guys played
always
him like the
going up.
first month of the season, always.
Yeah, always. I played against St. Joe's, I believe, twice. This past season and the year before. And I just remember the year before. The year before compared to last year, that game was very competitive, down the wire game,
Yep,
and that
yep.
that crowd was loud, especially that being the first game back from COVID break. That crowd was loud. The game was intense. It went down to the wire. It was a fun game,
Yep.
and I always had a number of respect for that coaching staff and just that team. I've never believed that St. Joe's was a pushover of a team. They always came hard. They was competitive. Was well coached, and they had some hooping of that I can remember just straight off the top of my head. I always remember going back into the locker room like these guys can ball. Like they're gonna give people a run for the money in their conference if other teams are not careful. So, shout out to those guys playing down there in St.
St.
Joe's,
Joe's.
and yeah, and shout out to him.
Well, I'll tell you one thing you might remember, which was that long commute, that long travel to Danzig. Everybody have come on when we talk about that. That was an annoying commute. I would have to say that's probably what you'll most remember, right?
Yeah,
That
definitely.
was a long commute, definitely a long commute. But obviously, we love the Brute Force and the Golden Eagles. But yeah, no, what I think, what I will say is similar. Before we move on to your career, is I think in a lot of ways, even though you guys play a totally different style of play, I think where their program is and where your guys are going, I think it's very similar where you have a coaching staff there that's in place, starting to build a foundation. Players are coming in. Obviously, I think here at York, very, very similar things here as well. But I did obviously now want to talk a little bit about your career. And obviously, what I thought was so interesting to note was, first of all, you score 1,000 points in high school and 1,000 points in college. I mean, off the top of the head, there aren't too many guys that could say that. I mean, talk about that feat and what's that like? Not only to score 1,000 points at John Dewey, which I know John Dewey High School very well, and on top of that, to score 1,000 points in York. I mean, what is that like?
Um, it's an honor. It's an honor, a huge accolade. Uh, in high school, I never in high school I never really thought about it, being the fact that I only played 3 years in high school. I didn't play my freshman year, high school basketball at John Dewey. Um, so to do it there in 3 years was kind of just like a surreal feeling, like wow, you did that in 3 years. Um, but coming into college, when you walk into, especially when you walk into the physical education building, and it's always this case of 1,000 basketball, like the basketballs,
Yep.
the 1,000 point scorers in that glass. And I would walk into there from the first day I walked in there. I looked at them and they would say the name with the College Cardinals. And I
Mm-hmm.
always told myself, like, yo, like, I want one of these basketballs. Like, I want my name submitted in this case. And then while playing throughout the year, I not it much until I became the rookie of the year. And I was just like, oh, like, now this could really, like, this could happen. Like this could be a real thing. And when it did happen, I was just grateful. I was grateful. I had great teammates that always put me in good positions. I had good coaching staffs that put me in good positions to do it. And it just was a symbol of my hard work paying off. Me being able to score the back, putting 1,000 points up. So I was just always grateful.
I thought it was interesting in watching your career and obviously getting a chance to actually watch it as it happened. I think we even spoke about when you scored 1,000 points earlier in the year that in some parts of your career you were more of the focal point in the offense, and others, kind of like this year, you weren't the focal point of the offense. I mean, how did that make you kind of feel? And in some ways, maybe you actually were a better overall basketball player because you didn't have to score as many points because you had other guys around you. But I mean, at times you were the focal point, at times you were not. How did you feel about those roles throughout your career in that sense?
Um, it was definitely interesting, especially I want to say my second and third year. It was interesting simply because my second year as a sophomore, I was like the focal point on a
You
lot of
were the
other
focal
teams' scout.
point.
I was
You were
on
the
a lot
focal
of
point.
other people's scouting reports. It was just like divine, 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 divine. So you realize that when teams focus in on you more, it could be harder to score the basketball. Just getting a rhythm. People different throwing their best defenders on you, boxing one in, face guarding, a lot of tactics. As where to my last 2 years in college, I was less of the focal point, just simply because I had better talent around me. I played with Karan Dublin last year. He was CUNYAC all first team, a number
Yeah, he
of
scored, I think, oh, yeah, he scored about 20
yeah,
points a game last year or something like
all,
that. We spoke about him.
he amazing, amazing talent. Number of all Met honorable mentions, and you just simply couldn't focus on just me. Like it was one of those situations where if you focus on me, he's gonna get off, and then if you focus on just simply him, I'm gonna get off. And then we had a lot of supporting pieces that just filled in with that. Guillermo, he was
Yep.
a great player for us. Mambe, he was another great player for us. DJ Hartley at the time when he played with us last year. So it was just so much with that. And then again this year where I wasn't the focal point, but just because people experienced enough of me, they knew that, okay, just because maybe his season average dropped, don't let that fool you because I played with Terrell Fullerton. So you had to focus on Terrell Fullerton. He's a professional talent. If you
Oh,
focus on
absolutely.
me,
No,
if you focus on me, he's gonna get off for 25 easily tonight.
and you had Tavon Price too. He wasn't too bad either.
Yeah,
you had
yo, like
you had Michael Gooseby
I
come back in the second half. Also, what he lead the conference in rebounds the second half of the season? I mean, you
right.
had some big pieces these last 2 years.
So my last so especially this last year, I felt like we were so diverse talent wise. Like our guard play was really, really heavy with me, Terrell, Tavon Prince, and then you had Matthew Tripetta, and then off the bench you had Will, and then with our bigs, you had Makai Gooseby, and then you had Wale, who took a huge leap from last year to being an all CUNY All-Star this year. So I just felt like it was really hard to defend us at times. Like it's really, really hard to defend us because you don't know what to expect. And then a lot of teams would focus so much on Terrell where it opened our game.
Well, you guys in the scouting report that we had on Sportswire Radio with you guys, because obviously I watched a lot of the CUNYAC obviously these last several years. You guys were good outside and inside. You were one of the few teams I think in this conference that legitimately could kill you from the outside, but also in the inside because of the bigs. I think that's why you guys offensively could just put the ball in the basket because you guys had at least legitimately on this team, even these last 2 years, 7 guys that could put up double digits on any given night. And I mean, that's what kind of made you guys so deadly, I think, at times.
Yeah. It's definitely tough for other teams because this year we had dudes come in the second year of the half of the season in the spring semester. And
I think Gooseby was the biggest example, right? Gooseby
he comes in and immediately impact the game. Tavon Prince came in the second half of the season and instantly impacts games. Tyrese Desno comes in second half and instantly impacts games. So it's just like you can't quite put your finger on it because we were so diverse. And that's what made it fun. It's just like we were so diverse, but the fact that we were an unselfish team and we played hard for one another made it fun. It's just like, oh, Tay could go off for 20. I could go off for 15. Or Wale could go off for 15 and 10. Or Makai could go off for 15 and 10. Made it fun. It's just like, yo, like the talent was always there, 1 through 15. So that part just made it fun playing against other teams.
No, you guys definitely had that. That's why I kind of feel like your season, the record, was kind of really misleading because you guys were way better than the record because obviously the whole team gels in the second half. That's why you guys were a much better team, and the record certainly was a different outcome. I do have somebody else that wants to say hello to you. Really hope Devine strives in this basketball industry. You know talent when you see it. Listen, amen to that because, listen, when I will always say, and Brad Weiss can attest to this, some other people, when I saw you play a little over 3 years ago, I watched you play. You had a certain look about you on the court. And I'm like, this team, I know they're down in the conference, but if this guy gets some help, he gets some players, they're going to be a team that's you're going to definitely be afraid to play. And that's kind of what happened here these last couple of years. And that's why we are very honored to have our guest on Sportswire Radio. That is Mr. 1,000 Points himself, the 2023 CUNYAC Sportsman of the Year. His name is Devine Chisholm. You can follow Devine on Instagram at IamVine2. And my name is the host of the Sports Report and the owner of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, continue to give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content. And, of course, we're on Friday nights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, talking all the latest happenings in the world of sports with the likes of the Brute Force, Brad Weiss. And I'll be back with more basketball coverage coming up, I think, 2 weeks from now, May the 1st, with an up-and-coming college basketball player who the Brute brute force kind of molded, named James D. Sapone, going to Miss Sordia College. So we'll certainly talk about that plus much, much more. But in the meantime, please follow the York Cardinals men's basketball team at York Cardinals _M basketball, as we are very honored to have on Mr. Devine Chisholm, who scored 1,187 points for our York Cardinals men's basketball team. So I have to ask you then, going on some of these individual feats, I mean, did you think a lot about winning the Rookie of the Year in 2019? Because that's got to be a big deal still. I mean, what was that feeling like when they announced you as the 2019 CUNYAC Rookie of the Year?
So the funny thing about it, I found out the last game of the regular season against Mega Evans College. So we're playing against Mega Evans College. I'm on the court, and I'm guarding, at the time, Justin Sutton from Mega Evans. He was the leading scorer in the conference at the time. And I'm guarding him, and I believe it was like a dead ball, maybe a free throw or something. And we're on the other end of the court, and he's just like, yo, congratulations. I'm just like, congratulations. Like, I'm looking at the scoreboard. We're down right now. We're fighting to get in the playoffs. Congrats. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? And he's just like, yo, like on the Rookie of the Year, like, congratulations. So I had like multiple Rookie of the Weeks honors leading up to that.
You won 3, I think, that season, if I recall correctly.
So that's when it like it was like, oh yeah, maybe I could win this. But then that's when he told me, it kind of solidified it. And then a couple of days later, Coach Nolan had texted me, told me to like, make sure you get a really nice shirt, tie. We go into a luncheon. Congratulations, you was a CUNYAC Rookie of the Year. So that was huge, and I believe I was the first one to win it in York. I was the first one to win it at York, like in a couple of years. I probably was like maybe like in 5 years or something like that.
I was gonna say 2013, I think, was the last time you had a Rookie of the Year in the school.
Somebody had won it, so that was just fun. And just to bring some recognition to York College basketball, just period. After that, anywhere I go, just was just like, oh, like you're that kid from York. It was just always that. You're that kid. You're that point guard from York, and I'm just like, yeah, like that's who I am. So it was definitely a huge honor to win that.
Oh, and certainly congratulations again. So I know we certainly said it on the air before we mentioned it, but I mean, how does that compare to, let's say, this year you win the Sportsman of the Year versus the Rookie of the Year? And, I mean, talk about kind of like how they compare and what did it mean to win this award?
Well, first to be there to be recognized as a CUNY, just one of the top players in the CUNY all 4 years of my college career was just a success in itself. To be recognized as the sportsmanship player of the year this year, I just felt like that was a huge nod to the coaching staffs across the CUNY, that they respected my game, that they recognized that throughout the 4 years that I was a really good player, a talented player, and that's what they thought of me, that I was a good player. I always showed respect to my teammates, to coaches, to referees. I never disrespected the game, or I never cheated the game. And that's just basically what it meant to me. It kind of gave you, it kind of got that same feel though. I was just always, I was always happy. Anytime I had got a text just saying like, oh, congratulations, you're going to another CUNY luncheon to be recognized as a top player in the conference, was just always a huge congratulations to me. It always felt good. It was a humbling experience.
You know, it's so unique about your career because you correctly pointed out your first year, you win the Rookie of the Year. Sophomore and junior years, your CUNYAC second team. I even think the 2020 award is most impressive because that team obviously was down. I think you guys only won 6 games that year, and the fact that you made it to second team, I think, is a really big deal because obviously everybody votes on, well, what was the team's record and this, that, and that. But the fact you got that, then junior year, you get second team again. And then this year, you get the Sportsman of the Year award. So it kind of shows you throughout your whole career, you win something. I mean, if you think about players in this conference, or frankly, any conference, Devine, there's very few people that can say that. I mean, Coach Gist didn't play 4 years at Brooklyn. I mean, he would have had, I'm sure, the same thing. But, I mean, it's really impressive that every year in this conference, you got an award. I mean, very few people, I think, can say it. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the air. We like you. It's an actual fact.
Um, I just I just try to stay as humble as possible about it. A lot of people that I talk to kind of bring it up to me, especially my old high school coach. Like, shout out to him, shout out to Coach Beast. He always texts me a lot, like, "Yo, like you've done things that a lot of people dream of doing as far as college basketball," and I just felt like my hard work has paid off over the years of just keeping my head down and just doing the work, and just letting my work speak for itself on the court, and hopefully, and it did that other people recognized my skill and my work and just being able to display it. So I was just always humble about it. Definitely a great experience, definitely great to be acknowledged over the years about it, but that was it.
No, you definitely listen. As somebody who watched you play throughout most of your career, you definitely deserve those accolades. And I was curious going back to the team aspect of it because last year is the first winning season the program has had in 7 years. And obviously, it's well documented what happened to the program before you came, and certainly Coach Adams, Coach Wilkerson, and the Gist brothers. But last year, you win 10 games in the conference. First season over 500 in 7 years. First playoff victory in 7 years. Home playoff game. And you guys were this close of going to the CUNYAC finals. And I mean, did you guys know that you were in the middle of a special season like that? I know COVID kind of really put everybody in different situations to begin with, but as that season goes on, you guys have all that momentum in the second half and everything goes together. And I know we spoke about this with Coach Gist when he came on here last year after the season, but I mean, did you guys as a team know that you were doing something special on behalf of the program as that's all kind of unraveling? And kind of talk about that season last year that led to you guys having the most success the program has had in 7 years?
Um, just leading up to it, of course, you hear the history of the events that transpired before. It's very unfortunate for the program, but when you going into last season, everybody coming back from COVID, everybody's just trying to get back into real basketball shape and stuff like that. Um, we definitely had a lot of moments throughout the season going into the second half of the season where it's just like, yo, like this is the year. Like this is the year we can do this. Like we have the bodies, we have the talent where we could do this. And then where we just went on a span during the second half of the season throughout the CUNY play where it was just like there's no doubt that we can win this year. Like if there was any doubt before, all of that doubt has left the room. And if you don't believe that we could win a CUNY championship this year, leave the locker room because in our heads, we were the team to win it. Like the Baruch Bearcats had won that the championship last year. They just came off back to back. But the second time we played Baruch at their we lost off a last second shot.
I know you lost what by like 3 points the total games against them. It was like crazy. We spoke about this with Coach Gist. It was like you guys lost like heartbreakers against them.
Yo, and the thing about it with that one was just like it was a wide open look, miss a make, and it's just one of those things where it just don't go your way. But I never doubted. Like last year, it was really a really special season, and it was a fun season. I believe that was the most important thing about it. Like, and it's cliche to say because I said it again, but we held each other accountable. Like Mambe Carisi, our senior last year, like he was the voice of the locker room.
I remember Coach saying that. Remember that like last year.
He was the I was the voice on the court, but truly in that locker room, if he's seen something like yo, like what are you doing on defense? You missing rotation. He was that guy in the locker room.
He's a big man, though. I'm not going to argue with Mambe, obviously. You know, I wouldn't argue with him.
A lot of people's not going to argue with Mambe. I'm not gonna lie.
Trust me, I speak to a lot of wrestlers on the air, and Mambe is right up there with those guys. Trust me on that. When I tell you that, I'm telling you.
He was one of those players like when he's tell you something, you listen. But he was one of those players, he tell you something and you listen because he would lead by example. He's not telling you anything that he wouldn't do himself on the court. So that's why you had to respect it. And that's what made us start holding each other way more accountable. and that's what led to our success to going into the quarterfinals of the CUNYAC play. Came up short against Baruch, a very good team, a very well coached team. Went on to win it all, and it definitely stung. It definitely stung because in our heads, we were looking at it like, if we beat Baruch, we win this thing. Like if we beat Baruch, we win this championship and we punch our ticket into the NCAA tournament. And that's a moment that can't be taken away from you. So it was definitely a fun season. Definitely.
No question. And I think still at the end of the day, to have 13 wins in the regular season, to win 10 games in that conference, I don't care what conference you play in, to win as many games as you guys did. And you guys kind of put it all together, if I recall correctly. There was a stretch, and I remember this just off the top of my head because we watched you guys play so much, and Brad and myself would speak about you guys over the past few years. You won, I think, 5 out of 7 games in the conference, or 7 out of 9. And, you guys kind of were peaking at the right time. And I remember saying this to Coach Giss, and I said, did you feel like you guys kind of peaked at the right time? And I think that's kind of what happened. You guys peaked just at the right time, and it all kind of came together, and that's kind of why you had that success, I think.
Absolutely. I remember that span. At that time, Coach Nolan was going through some personal issues.
Yep.
Which of course won't get into, but he was going through personal issues, and it really took a toll on us as a team.
Well, you guys were motivated. I remember Coach Giss saying you guys almost had that extra motivation to play for him because of the stuff off the court. It kind of gave you guys maybe that extra incentive. Sometimes you see this in sports where a team kind of rallies. They rally for a cause that's greater than the actual on the court or anything else. And I kind of felt, you guys had the talent, no question, but you had that extra motivation, which I think in that conference, other teams didn't have that season.
It definitely gave us that push and that motive and that extra effort where it was just like this can't be this can't be an ego thing no more. This can't be a me thing with anybody in this locker room. Like, we're playing for a bigger purpose now, as if we wasn't playing enough already to try to possibly win a CUNY championship. But now somebody that holds us to such a high regards is going through a really, really tough time right now. And he can't be here with us no matter how much he will call us before games on FaceTime, just really keeping us motivated. And that really pushed us. That upped our defense. Our defense during that stretch was second to none. Amazing. And it really pushed us. It was really fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, it's so fascinating as we're speaking with basketball star from the York Cardinals men's basketball team, Mr. Devine Chisholm. And, of course, Devine, one of the greatest players in school history, the 2023 CUNYAC Sportsman, and also 2019 CUNYAC Rookie of the Year. As you played for a number of different coaches here that they impacted you in a lot of ways. Obviously, Tommy Guerin also was here for a while. Obviously, another great basketball player. Also, another guy that certainly Nolan had a huge influence. And obviously, the Gist brothers, certainly, they're well documented. So and then Tyrone Wilkerson, who's been here at the program, kind of the anchor. He's kind of the veteran hand here at this point. But it's so fascinating how you got something from so many of these different coaches. I do have a comment from somebody, so I want to at least let them have the opportunity to say hello to you, because a lot of people do want to talk to you because, well, you are a big deal. And Luke says here, do you believe being around a sports team from a young age gives you life lessons for the future? Because from my experiences, I honestly believe it taught me so much. What's your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I think playing sports from a young age just builds character. It builds character because I feel like it's the second to closest thing is just in life. Like, especially me growing up now as being a young adult with everything that I have going on, I realized through life, everything is not going to go your way. You're going to go through failures. You're going to go through hard times. You're going to go through ups. You're going to go through downs. And if anything has taught me that, it's been sports. Sports has taught me to be a team player. It's taught me to be a leader. It's taught me to be vocal. It's taught me to not get too high, but not get too low. Anything could change. Anything could happen. And it's definitely taught me that. So it's definitely helped me throughout life. And that's just how I attack life now, the same way I used to attack playing basketball. and just going about things. Even just preparing in life, like having rituals. Like I used to have the same pregame ritual before every game, and now I have the same kind of schedule or same routine of when I wake up in the morning and just getting ready for life, getting ready for work, getting ready for school. So definitely, sports have taught me everything and just built my character, who I am. So without sports, who knows what I'd have been?
Well, you seem way mature above your years. You certainly seem way mature than yours truly, and even the brute force Brad Weiss. But I obviously say you're doing a great job. On a lighter note, I hear apparently, Devine, you are a great bowler. Now, I find this so fascinating because obviously we do our work here on Sportswire. We do have a crack staff. And I mean, what got you into bowling and being such a great bowler? And one of the things I know you wanted to do was be a professional bowler. So you got to talk about that because people are like, what is Tom talking about? So,
So so the story behind that, I remember one day in high school, me and my friend Hanson, one of my best friends. The season is done. Once the season is done, you kind of just like a bunch of free time. You don't know what to do with your free time. Like, let's go bowling. And before that, I haven't been bowling probably since I was like 8 years old. So we go we're 16 years old now. We go bowling in Sunset Park, Melody Lanes.
I don't know. He was at 37th Street, right off 4th Avenue.
Right,
yep.
Yep.
And the Jackie Gleason bus depot, of course.
I was horrible. I was so bad. Like I was so bad. I was throwing the ball in the gutter every time. I'm just like, yeah, like what's going on? Like, and I'm one of those people like I want to be a perfectionist. Like I want to be good at everything I would do, especially sports wise. Like I want to just like I feel like if it's a sport, I could do it. Like I don't know what it is of the confidence about me. I feel like if there's a sport, if it's a ball involved or just a physical activity, I could do it. So after that, I would just literally like with my free time, probably like 2 to 3 times a week, I would take my money and I would go to Melody Lanes by myself.
That's expensive, because I've actually bowled. You certainly was spending some pretty pennies there, sir.
It definitely took money out of my pocket, but I felt like it was worth it for the skill I got now. And I would just literally go there by myself and practice. Wow. And just practice. Yeah, like sometimes my friends would call me, like, yo, where you at? Da da da. Yeah, I'm bowling. Who you with? Da da da. I'm by myself. You bowling by yourself? Like, yo, you're weird. And I'm just like, yo, like, call it what it is. Like, it's fun to me. I enjoy doing it, and I wanted to be good at it. And it definitely paid off. It's gotten to a point where sometimes where I go bowling with my friends, and they wouldn't want to bowl with me. Like, they wouldn't want to. It's like, yo, like, they'd be like, yo, like, you take the fun out of it. Like, we're bowling for fun, and you're just trying to crack 200 plus, or da da da. And I'm just like, yo, like, it's just how I bowl. It's not me. Like, it's just how it came about. And then from there, I just like started watching PBA or ESPN when it come on and stuff. And I was like, yo, this basketball stuff don't work out. Like, I'm gonna try to go and be a professional bowler, definitely.
Well, apparently this has certainly struck some chord with a few people. So let's certainly get to Luke first here. Hot-headed Devine takes it off to the court, to the bowling lane. Yeah, I certainly echo that. But brute force Brad Weiss chimes in, who apparently tried his hand at softball, and apparently the word was he wasn't too good at softball, but says, rumor has it John Gonzalez, who, by the way, is the head of the Sports Authority, which we shared our interview with here. Thank you, John, for that, needs work at bowling. Now, I would love to see, Devine, this is where I would love to see you and the brute force Brad Weiss apparently face off with, maybe in a matchup of bowling, because you guys didn't quite get a chance to play each other actually on the court because he was hurt, as usual self, when SJLI was playing you guys at York. But I would love to see you basically take the brute force to school on the bowling lanes.
I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm a competitor. I bowl. I go often, so I'll definitely be with that.
I'll tell you what, I'll even go further. In fact, I'll even do this out. I know it costs a lot of money to go bowling, so I'll tell you what, if the brute force wants to go bowling against you, I'll actually put up the money where I'll pay for you guys to go bowl against each other. If you want, I'll make it happen. You won't even have to pay nothing. Don't worry about it. That's what we do on Sportswire. So if the brute force feels like he wants to bowl somewhere and we can pick the location, I mean, let's make it happen. I'm sure somebody out there. Actually, the brute force Brad Weiss actually wants to ask, what's your best score, by the way?
My highest score of bowling, I'll probably would say, is 225, the max.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, you're actually a
and
pretty good bowler then. Okay,
yeah,
but you
but
weren't right.
that's literally my best score, and that was just like, I don't know. It was one of those moments where, like in basketball, where you have a heat check and it just feel like everything is going in. It was one of
Yep.
those moments on the bowling lane, and it never happened again. Like I've been ever since that happened, I try to get past 225, and it hasn't happened.
It's hard.
But
Yeah. Well, you
yeah,
know what, to do a 225, you probably had at least a mark in every frame. You probably had a turkey, which is 3 strikes or more. So you
yeah,
probably had at least some of those things. So I could certainly see that. And Luke wants me to stream the game live. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll do it. Listen, I mean, listen, if Brad Weiss wants to bowl and Devine wants to bowl, I mean, I'll pay for the game. I mean, we'll even do a best of 3. I mean, I feel that confident in watching this game and talking about this game. I mean, let's make it happen. In fact, I'll even put the brute force out there. I mean, what's your schedule, Brad? Do you want to go bowling? I mean, do you want to go bowling and bowling with Devine? I mean, it would be
it'd
kind of a
be
fun
fun, man.
matchup.
Definitely. Yeah.
Let's do it. I mean, listen, I mean, I'd love to see it. If anybody else wants to come out and watch, I mean, feel free. I'll let the brute force respond here later on. But I mean, I was also curious in Coach Wilkerson, because obviously I have to mention Coach Wilkerson, because obviously we'll come back to Brad in a second, but he was kind of the anchor of the program in a lot of ways. He was the senior coach. I mean, you have to talk about Coach Wilkerson, really truly one of the unsung heroes of this program, and talk about the role in your career and how important he was to the team's success.
Coach Coach Wilkinson. We call his players call him Coach Black. He
Really,
is
tell us why. Tell us why.
he is because he's gritty. He's gritty. And
He did
every
look
college
great on
player,
the streams. He did look like
he
on the streams watching. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
every college player, every college basketball player, and we all know who I'm talking about. We all have that one coach. When you see walk in the gym, it's just like, oh man, it's gonna be one of those days, because he always wanted the best for us as a team, and he was hard nosed, no business, like give it your all. Like Coach Black, um, amazing coach, like amazing coach. He's been around for years. He's played on a Division I level, and and he just simply knew what he was talking about all the time when he played basketball. Very, very animated, very, very serious about his business, and very, very serious about basketball because he loved basketball. And as a freshman, he was on my back when I was a freshman. When I was a freshman coming in from high school, like in high school, I thought I could play defense. Like I thought I was good at playing defense. And then I get into college and I realized I couldn't guard a cone. Like it was like my defense really was not good. And when he realized that, he was just like, "Oh yeah, like I'm gonna be on your heels every practice." Like, and he was on my back as a freshman every practice about playing defense. And that was his specialty, teaching defense. And because of that, it made me a way better on-ball defender, especially throughout my years of playing there. And he was one of those coaches that just held you accountable. Like, yo, like, what are you doing? How could you give up easy layups like this? Like he was one of those dudes, and his catchphrases and some of the lines he said were just simply hilarious. Where sometimes you would just have to throw your face in your shirt so you could laugh and not get in trouble for it. But definitely a great coach. He he always taught those principles of more than basketball, though, like life lessons more than basketball. What are your plans or what are your goals once the basketball stops bouncing? So I was always grateful for him for that. Shout out to Coach Wilkinson, shout out to Coach Black. Amazing coach, amazing person, but definitely a funny animated coach.
You guys had such an interesting staff here. You were like 20 or 25 minutes with the legendary Devine Chisholm. I want everybody to follow Devine on Instagram at I am Vine too. Also, please follow the program at York Cardinals _M basketball. Obviously, the program has done a lot of great things over the past few years, and we're very, very fortunate to have had the opportunity to speak with Devine. And of course, the support is always from Coach Jamel Gist. Always been one of my favorites on Sportswire to ever come on is Jamel Gist, but maybe Devine might have an edge over him. We'll see. Stay tuned. The Brute Force Brad Weiss is basically chickening out. He says, yikes, 225. I might need to stick trying to beat John Gonzalez. So the Brute Force is already a chicken. Divine bowling. I would probably agree with all of that. I am sure the locker room was an intense place to be if a game wasn't going so well. Well, I mean, certainly like any other locker room. But I was also curious on a lighter note. I mean, so Gist versus Gist. I mean, you had two Gist on the staff. It's one thing to have one staff of Gist brothers over the years, but you had actually Coach Justin and Jamel Gist. And were you able to tell both of them apart? Were you able to have a favorite over the other? I mean, I had to ask that one on a lighter note. I mean, what was it like having two Gist brothers on the sidelines here for the team this year?
It was interesting because I knew Jamel Gist for 3 years already. I knew his brother when he coached at St. Joseph, Brooklyn.
Yep, with Coach Cocazello.
Yep, right. But me and him weren't as close.
Okay.
I would say that their coaching style is so similar, but so different.
I could see that. Knowing the both of them, I could see that. Yeah.
So like Coach Jamel, he talks about being such this fly coach, cool dude or whatever. But he's more fiery. Like he's more fiery. He's more in your face. He's more like yelling at times.
Yeah, I could see that because I watched him at Brooklyn when he was on the. Remember, Cocazello is certainly a highly different personality than Gist or Adams, and I've seen him on the sidelines in Brooklyn, so I can vouch for him.
And then his brother is just like they always preach the same principles, but just in different ways. Like you go to his brother and you talk to him on the side, and it's just like, yeah, like you need to be more aggressive. Like, you need to shoot the ball more. Like, what are you doing? Like you need to control the offense more, or you need to get more stops on defense. He's more laid back, but always definitely tells the same principles. And with him, it was just like figuring out his coaching style along the way because they were brothers. They're both clowns. They both always joking.
Well, they both have very, very highly entertaining personalities. I mean, we love them both. And I mean, I'm not going to pick one over the other because I am sure that they'll both hear this. So I'm not going to put you on the spot doing that. But I did think it was so interesting that you have two Gists on the sideline. It's very rare in basketball. And I think Brad and I even spoke about this on one show when we were recapping during the season, obviously you guys and some other teams. And I was like, wow, there's actually the brothers are actually coaching together on the same team in the same sidelines. I mean, we saw in the past when they both actually coached at York and SJ Brooklyn, but we had it where they're on the same team. So I thought that was such a fascinating thing to ask. And I did want to ask you before I get to a few other questions and obviously closing thoughts, and very, very honored to have you. And I could ask you so many things, but I did think that was one thing that was so notable about your career was you were a great free throw shooter. And I want to bring this up for a couple of reasons, because obviously we cover a lot of basketball. I watched a lot of D3 basketball as you know this year. I probably watched about 80, 90 games, and Brad can certainly back me up on that. And one of the things that was so important most about your game might have actually been, well, it's one of the two things that was best about your game was actually you were one of the best free throw shooters in the entire conference. You were almost 80% from the line. If you had players that shot 70% or even like 65, 66%, it was like, wow, they were a good free throw shooter. But you were probably one of the best free throw shooters in the program's history. And I was so curious for those that are listening and watching, especially fans of the team and the program and fans of ours, and what made you such a great free throw shooter?
They were easy points.
I know, but people actually get these shots. They can't make them.
My whole thing was, and then this was another thing with Coach Wilkinson. Like, you go into the locker room in halftime, And if a game was lopsided, he'd always look at three numbers. He'd look at the free throws, how many turnovers that we have, and he's looking at the rebounded numbers. So with free throws with me was just like I'm a guard. I got to be able to shoot if I want to stay on the floor. And easy points are easy points. Like you put them up and you shoot them. With me, I think my whole thing was always just staying relaxed, and just keeping the same routine all the time. And the funny thing about it is this last year, our first game we played against Keene, Keene University in New Jersey.
Yep.
And I finished at the free throw line. I believe I shot like I want to say I missed 8 free throws. And I missed 8 free throws. And in the back of my head, the first thing was, first of all, what are you doing that you're missing 8 free throws? Like something is off. And in the back of my head is like, damn, I know I'm gonna hear this from Coach Black. Like I already know. I already know once we get in his locker room, he's gonna chew me out for this. And he did. And over the course of the season, I just regathered myself, just shooting more free throws after practice, refining my rhythm, refining my routine. And it just became easy. And just remembering that it's just shooting the basketball. I've done this 1,000 times, and it's just secondhand nature.
It's almost like bowling. Almost, you go out there and you have to have that shot to go out there, and you want to knock as many pins down. And a free throw is almost like that. But I thought it was so important to know because I spoke with a lot of coaches on and off the air, and I won't say the coaches, but obviously people know who they are. And I would ask, how difficult is it to make free throws? And they would say, Tom, guys have to go out there and they practice. They had to take 100 shots, 200 shots, and you'd be surprised and how difficult it is. And yet you mastered that. And one of the other things you really mastered that, which I think as to why the program was successful these last 2 years, and I think you're going to about to know what I'm going to talk about, is you were actually 69th in the nation when it came to assist to turnover ratio. Now, I think one of the reasons why, in addition to your teammates, why you guys were successful, especially in conference these last 2 years, is you didn't turn the ball over as much as the other teams. So you guys had more possessions. You guys had more opportunities to go out there and put more buckets in than the other team. And I mean, that's a really, really notable feat. Not too many people can say that from this conference. And I mean, talk about what did it mean to you for your career to be this season ranked 69th in the entire nation of all college basketball and assist to turnover ratio. What did that mean to you?
First off, I didn't even know that. So
oh, well. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Appreciate
we have a crack staff.
Right. But yeah, just realizing that my coaching staff trusted me to just take care of the basketball. From my sophomore year to my last year, I definitely realized that the ball was going to be in my hands a lot more. Just being the floor general, just dictating plays, putting my guys in the right position, and just making sure that I took care of the basketball. And that if I didn't take care of the basketball, I would hear about it, or I would be sitting on the bench, because you can't win a game without the basketball. If you're giving up the basketball more than if your team is giving up the basketball more than the other team, your chances of winning is just diminished. Because
you don't have less possessions than the other team, right?
The other team, exactly.
The layman's point. That's why I thought it was so important to kind of bring up. And obviously, I know Coach Gist was a great guard in his own right. Obviously, Nolan also played the game as well, and they know a lot about those. That's why I thought it was so important to note. And that's why you were so clutch. One of the things, and I'll definitely get to a couple more questions, and obviously very honored to have you on one more time. Again, please, everybody, follow you on Instagram, Devine Chisholm. It's on Instagram, and I am Vine too, was that you were a clutch player. You were one of those guys with the ball that if you had the ball, you were going to do something with it. You were going to do something, whether it was giving it to your teammates, giving it to the guys around you, doing it yourself. I think that's why the team was put in positions to be able to have those opportunities, to have the home playoff games, back-to-back winning seasons in the conference, do things we haven't done in a while. And, after talking about all this stuff, I kind of wanted to ask you now, what is your goals now for the rest of your career? I mean, you spoke a little bit about them throughout the show, but what are your goals going forward?
Um, so I'll be graduating this semester with my bachelor's in journalism. Um,
Congratulations.
thank you. But as far as basketball, I want to see where the overseas route will take me. Um, it's been my dream since a little kid to just be a professional basketball player, to say that I played professionally, and to just hold myself to that high regard. And just talking to people in my corner, just people that I trust the most around me, and just people that would be the most honest with me. Um, I hear a lot that that they believe in me, that I can play basketball overseas. And to be honest, there's so many opportunities across the country, across the world, just to play professional basketball. So I think it'd be a huge knock on me if I didn't give myself the opportunity or just the chance to try and go play professionally. Um, I want to get into coaching. I would love to coach, whether it be high school or just joining any coaching staff anywhere, to just share my knowledge of the game with up and coming players coming through in college. So those are just kind of the two focal points I have myself doing as far as just basketball is concerned, and that's it. Um,
Well, I could at least talk about the coaching part for a second because I know the brute force Brad Weiss is a high school basketball coach over in Plainview, Long Island for the Plainview JFK boys JV team. And Brad, I know the commute might be a little bit of a distance, but if there was an opening, I'm sure that Devine would certainly gladly get a opening on the basketball team to join. You might even want to let him be the head coach, and you can kind of just doze off there and maybe help the team get more success this year. Wink, wink. But on the professional side of it, and again, and I want to say this because I've watched you play live. I watched this team the past 3 years, a number of your games on YouTube. And I'm going to say this because I interview a lot of people all over the world. I interview wrestlers, professional players. I do think that you can make it. The reason I think you can make it is because you have that moxie about you. And if you have confidence and if you believe in yourself, I think everything else is going to follow. Because watching what you do with the basketball player, you're one of these guys, in my opinion at least, and I know I'm not a coach, I'm not a player, but I've seen a lot of D3 basketball these last 3 or 4 years. And I think what you have going for you is you have what's called basketball IQ. Your IQ is probably going to be as good as anybody's right now that's in the CUNY. That includes Isaiah Gathers. That includes all the other players in the conference that did all the great stuff, and even your teammates. And I think that's when you look at the European game, if you're going to go somewhere like in Israel, like a Doug Levy did, or Jesse Winter, who came on this past Thursday, or Jason Brower in Puerto Rico, or anybody else that plays, or even the semi-pro route, because obviously we actually do some work with the team, the New York Tri-State Admirals. They play in the TBL League and also the Underdogs in the ABA semi-pro league as well, that you have the IQ. You have that ability to kind of put yourself in those positions that I think could put you to be a professional basketball player. And again, at this level, there's a lot of guys that have done it. So I believe in watching you play. You had a lot of points, a lot of assists, a lot of great stuff, but I think you're even better than those stats would even indicate. So I definitely think that you have a shot here. And I wanted to ask you this last question here before I get to closing thoughts here. And if there were one or two moments that stood out most in your career in York so far, what would they have been?
one or two moments, one or two moments that have stood out. Okay, the first moment will be winning that home playoff game against CCNY last year, for the simple fact of that was my first playoff game. Um, Going into it, I was nervous. You could feel the atmosphere was just a little bit different.
Yeah,
We had
you know what? I remember that very well watching it online,
we
and
had a
that
crowd,
yep.
and it was just different, but it was fun. It was fun. It was fun to play in. It was fun to just experience, just to get some playoff experience. And then the second one, I would say is senior night, my senior night against Hunter College this year. And the reason being is because even though we didn't come out with the win, um, just having like that's a real moment of it coming back full circle. Just like I remember my first official game as a freshman to now my last game.
Somebody wants you to continue talking.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so to just having my last game as a senior was just a full circle moment. Having my family there, my dad, my mom, my siblings, all of my closest friends. It was just a moment like wow, like a golden dream of so much of my friends, so much of family in the crowd, so many supporters there at that game. My teammates supporting me, my coaching staff, getting the senior portrait, getting the 1,000-point ball there. It was just really like a wow moment for me. So those are the two moments I could really think of. And I actually played pretty well that game. So that was those probably my two most memorable moments at York College.
Well, you ended your career, at least at York, really on a high note in terms of the awards, weekly awards you win, and the team obviously aspect of it. I know wasn't to your numbers, but in terms of just the way you ended your career, like the last, I want to say like 4 or 5 games of your career. I mean, you ended with a bang. I mean, you score your career high 29 points in the second half of the season against Brooklyn, and February 8th, I think, was the biggest win this year against CCNY, and that was obviously a team that was kind of like your nemesis throughout these past couple of years here in the CUNY. So I think those are things I would keep in mind. Obviously, the individual accomplishments we spoke about, Rookie of the Year. We spoke about the Sportsman of the Year, second team in the conference. You had Rookie of the Weeks. You had Player of Weeks, and a number of different things. And you had also All Met Writers. I think you were third team, and you had a number of different awards. So you had a lot of certainly moments. But the Brew Force, Brad Weiss, would like to ask you actually a question before we do get to closing thoughts. And I'll let Brad ask one because Brad should have been here with us. He actually knows you, but I guess he was just shy. He was shy of you. That's all. He was just certainly shy. But he says, confidence. Make it happen, Devine. He says to me, easy on the head coaching job. Well, okay, fair, touche. But Devine has the qualities to coach for sure. I definitely do. And I see very much a lot of similarities with guys like that we've had on, Matt Hurt, Doug Levy now at Northwestern. I see a lot of that in you, that maturity. And speaking of playing pro, what NBA team do you like, Devine?
I know this is going to sound crazy being that I'm a guy from Brooklyn and New York City, and I get a lot of flack from this. But, yeah, I'm a Boston Celtics guy.
I knew it. And that's why I was waiting for this because you're actually not the first player that has said that to us. Alec Willis said that and Matt Hurts. You're the third Celtic fan.
I am a Boston Celtics guy. I've been a Boston Celtics guy since probably about the age of 9 when I really first started watching basketball on TV. Rajon Rondo is my favorite player. And it's crazy because my game is similar in ways, but really nothing compared to his.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been a Celtics guy my whole life. I've been through the hardships where we were getting knocked out of first rounds to watching Jason Tatum just go up 2-0 against the Atlanta Hawks.
I was about to say they are up 2-0 right now. They look good so far.
Yeah, so my current favorite player right now in the NBA is Jason Tatum. I'm a Celtics guy. I'm always be a Celtics guy, and that's just who I rock with, man.
Well, it's funny because the Brew Force, Brad Weiss, is a New York Knicks fan. You talk about Brooklyn, obviously the Brooklyn Nets, and obviously the Nets are certainly down 0-2 against the 76ers, and you think about growing up not too far from the Barclays Center. But the Celtics, I can understand because if you said 9, that was right around the 2008 championship. So at the Celtics, and they were in those wars with the Lakers in 08, 09, 2010. You know, there were some great teams. Those the Celtics, I could see it. I could certainly see it. You look like you would be a Boston Celtic. You certainly could do a lot worse than I knew it was Celtics because we obviously did the research on you, but I was kind of wanting Brad Weiss to kind of figure that out. But obviously, that's a great question there from the Brew Force. But I know you're a busy man. I know you have a lot going on, and I just want to say how honored that I've had the opportunity to speak with you, and obviously watching you play live. And you definitely met the criteria as somebody that's going to go on to do bigger and better things. And you're certainly a young man that, you're going to go on and be interviewed and way bigger than this. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity you even gave us of your busy schedule, getting ready to graduate, getting ready for so many other obligations that you have. So I want to give you the floor first, and I want to give you any closing thoughts, anything you want to say to family, supporters, your teammates, friends, and anything else that you'd like to plug that we haven't plugged here. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity that you granted to share your story with us here tonight on Sportswire Radio. So I turn it over to you, and anything you want to say to anybody out there watching and listening, and anything else you want to plug that we haven't.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of having me up here. I've been a fan of the show for quite some time. So actually coming up here is check off my bucket list.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to the fans and supporters for listening, watching. And thank you for my family. Thank you for my friends just being with me through this whole journey. Thank you to your college and the coaching staff and the faculty for believing in me and just giving me the opportunity to play college basketball. I'm truly blessed. Shout out to my mom. Shout out my dad. Shout out to my beautiful daughter, Kylan. Daddy loves
God bless.
you.
God bless.
God bless. Thank you. And I'm blessed. Thank you, man.
Well, I'm a reverend. I could actually bless your daughter. I'm a reverend. I actually do have the certificate. That's why I wanted to say God bless. But no, listen, you're definitely a guy that's going to go out and do bigger and better things. And I want everybody one more time to follow the York Cardinals men's basketball team on Twitter, also Instagram, York Cardinals _M basketball. I want to thank one more time the head coach of the team, Jamel Gist, for certainly granting us the opportunity. Also the athletic department for allowing this as well. I want to make sure I notion that because obviously they said, okay, we can speak with Devine, and certainly look forward to the future. And I hope to see you soon on the show. Hopefully, I guess Brad's going to take a rain check on the bowling game, but the offer's still there. We'd be happy to pay for a bowling matchup between the two of you at a bowling alley of anyone's choice. I still keep that offer out there. But I definitely hope to see you out there on the court again. It was an honor to watch you play for York in person and on YouTube. And definitely hope to have you on again in the coming months as your journey continues, wherever it might be in the game of basketball, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled program. But if you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I want to thank everybody that is tuned in tonight to hear the story of the 2023 CUNYAC Sportsman of the Year, Devine Chisholm, also 5th all-time in school history for our York Cardinals men's basketball team in points. He was also the 2009 CUNYAC Rookie of the Year. He was also CUNYAC's second team in 2020 and 2022. And please, one more time, follow the Cardinals basketball team, York Cardinals _M basketball. Also, please follow it on Instagram at Devine Chisholm. It's I am Vine too. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. And thank everybody for tuning in on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. Good night.